The text from my aunt lit up my phone like a warning siren. Can't wait to meet your boyfriend at the wedding. Don't you dare show up alone again, Adrian. The whole family is counting on you this time. My stomach dropped. I was 32, successful in my marketing job in Chicago, and still hiding the truth from every relative in our tight-knit Texas hometown. They thought I was just picky. I wasn't picky. I was terrified. That same afternoon, I stared across the conference table at Kai, my coworker from the design department. He was 28, openly gay, effortlessly confident, and the only person I trusted enough to ask for the craziest favor of my life. I need you to pretend to be my boyfriend for one weekend, I blurted. My cousin's wedding in Austin. Big family event. No strings. I'll pay for everything. Kai leaned back, dark eyes sparkling with amusement. You're serious? He ran a hand through his tousled hair. Why me? Because you're the only guy I know who won't make it weird, and because my family already thinks I'm dating someone from work. I may have mentioned your name once by accident. I winced. He laughed, a warm sound that somehow eased the knot in my chest. All right, Adrian. One weekend. But we need ground rules. Holding hands in public, pet names, the works. And if anyone asks how we met, we keep it simple. Office romance. 2 weeks later, we were on a flight to Austin, practicing our story like actors before opening night. Kai squeezed my shoulder when we landed. Relax. We've got this. But as the rental car rolled toward the sprawling ranch where my entire family had gathered, I wondered if I had just lit a fuse I couldn't put out. The moment we stepped onto the flagstone patio, Aunt Linda spotted us. There he is. And this must be Kai. She pulled us both into a hug that smelled of gardenias and hairspray. You two are adorable together. Look at those smiles. I forced a grin while Kai slipped his arm around my waist like it was the most natural thing in the world. His touch was warm through my shirt, and for a split second I forgot we were acting. My cousin Marcus, the groom, clapped me on the back. Finally bringing someone home, cuz. Proud of you. That night at the rehearsal dinner, fairy lights twinkled overhead and country music drifted from hidden speakers. Kai played the part perfectly, refilling my glass, laughing at my dad's bad jokes, even stealing a quick kiss on my cheek when Aunt Linda wasn't looking. Every time his lips brushed my skin, something inside me shifted. I told myself it was just nerves. But later, when the guests thinned out and we stood alone on the wraparound porch, Kai turned to me. Your family's great, Adrian. A little intense, but they love you. His voice dropped. You okay? You've been quiet since the kiss. I swallowed. Yeah. Just thanks for doing this. I owe you. He smiled softly, moonlight catching the gold flecks in his eyes. No debt. I'm actually having fun. I didn't sleep much that night in the guest room we were forced to share. Kai's steady breathing filled the quiet while I stared at the ceiling, replaying every touch, every glance. Tomorrow was the wedding. One more day of pretending. What could possibly go wrong? The wedding morning dawned bright and hot. Texas sun already baking the white wooden chairs lined up in the meadow behind the ranch. I adjusted my tie for the 10th time while Kai straightened my collar, fingers lingering just a second too long. You look good, he said quietly, close enough that I caught the scent of his cologne. Something clean and woodsy that made my pulse jump. We took our seats in the second row, my hand resting on his knee because that's what boyfriends did. My mother kept glancing back at us with misty eyes. You two remind me of your father and me 30 years ago, she whispered. Guilt twisted in my gut. She had no idea this was all theater. During the ceremony, as my cousin exchanged vows with his bride, Kai leaned in. You ever think about this? Getting married for real someday? His breath tickled my ear. I shrugged, trying to sound casual. Not really. Family makes it complicated. He didn't push, but his hand found mine and stayed there through the entire I do. When the kiss happened at the altar, the crowd cheered. Kai squeezed my fingers. See? Happy endings exist. At the reception under a massive white tent, the music swelled and guests spilled onto the dance floor. My uncle pulled us out for a slow song. "Come on, boys, show us how it's done." Kai didn't hesitate. He led me into the center, one hand on my lower back, the other holding mine. We swayed under strings of lights, bodies close. I could feel the heat of him, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat against my chest. For the first time since we arrived, pretending felt dangerously easy. "You're tense," he murmured. "Breathe, Adrian. I've got you." I looked up. His eyes were soft, almost tender. The song ended too soon, but he didn't let go right away. Later, while we sat at the family table eating barbecue and drinking sweet tea, my grandmother leaned over. "Kai, dear, tell me how you knew Adrian was the one." Kai didn't miss a beat. The day he spilled coffee all over my laptop and then stayed 3 hours helping me recover the files. I thought, this guy cares. And he makes me laugh even when everything's a mess. He glanced at me with a smile that felt too real. "Still does." My grandmother beamed. "That's how you know." I laughed along, but inside my mind was spinning. Every story we told was half true. The coffee spill had happened. The late-night help had happened. The laughter that was happening right now. As the night wore on, my cousin Marcus pulled me aside near the bar. "He's good for you, man. I've never seen you this relaxed. Don't let him go." I nodded, throat tight. If only he knew. Later, back in our room, Kai loosened his tie and collapsed onto the bed. "Long day, but we crushed it." He patted the mattress beside him. "Come on, fake boyfriend. Debrief time." I sat, kicking off my shoes. "My family's buying it. A little too well." "Yeah." He studied me. "You regretting asking me?" "No," I said quickly. "Just it's getting hard to remember where the line is." Kai's expression softened. "We still have tomorrow's brunch before we fly out. One more performance. Then we go back to normal." But as he turned off the lamp and the room went dark, normal already felt like a distant country. Brunch the next morning was supposed to be easy. Mimosas, eggs Benedict, goodbye hugs. Instead it became the moment everything tilted. We were seated under a sprawling live oak when my dad cleared his throat. "Adrian, your mom and I have been talking. We're so happy you finally brought someone home. Kai fits right in. We'd love to have you both for Christmas." I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. Kai recovered first, smiling warmly. "We'd be honored, sir." Under the table his hand found my knee and squeezed. Reassurance, not performance. I managed a nod. Inside, panic clawed at me. Christmas meant another weekend. More lies, more of Kai's hand in mine. More of this confusing warmth that refused to stay pretend. The airport ride was quiet. Kai drove while I stared out the window at rolling Texas hills. "You okay?" he asked eventually. "I don't know," I admitted. "They want us back for holidays. I can't keep asking you to do this." He glanced over. "What if I said I don't mind?" I turned. "Kai, this was supposed to be one weekend." "I know." His voice was steady. But somewhere between the rehearsal dinner and that slow dance, it stopped feeling like acting for me. The words hung between us like the humid air outside. I didn't answer. Couldn't. At security we hugged goodbye, quick, professional. But when his arms tightened and he whispered, "Text me when you land," something cracked open in my chest. Back in Chicago, work resumed. We passed each other in hallways, exchanged polite smiles, kept the same professional distance we'd always had. Except now every glance carried weight. I replayed his words on the drive 100 times. 3 days later my phone buzzed at midnight. "Kai, can't stop thinking about that dance. Dinner tomorrow? No family. Just us." I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. My thumbs hovered. Finally I typed, "Yes." The restaurant was small, candlelit Italian. Kai arrived in a dark button-down that made his shoulders look even broader. We ordered wine and talked real talk, not scripted stories. He told me about growing up in Seattle with two moms who never once made him feel ashamed. I told him about Texas Sundays in church where the pastor preached that love like mine was a sin. Halfway through tiramisu, he reached across the table. Adrian, I'm not asking you to come out tomorrow. I'm just asking, what if we stopped pretending and started seeing where this actually goes? My heart hammered. You mean, for real? Yeah. His thumb traced circles on my knuckles. For real. I didn't pull away. Instead, I turned my hand and laced our fingers. I'm scared. I know, he said softly. But you're not alone anymore. That night we walked along the river, city lights glittering on the water. When he kissed me under the bridge, slow, certain, no audience. It didn't feel like the beginning of something fake. It felt like coming home. The next weeks blurred into a secret world of stolen mornings and late-night texts. We kept it quiet at the office, but every evening Kai's apartment became our sanctuary. He cooked stir-fry while I graded campaign reports on his couch. We watched bad horror movies and laughed until our sides hurt. For the first time in years, I wasn't performing. I was just me. But secrets have expiration dates. My mother called on a Tuesday. Honey, your Aunt Linda saw pictures from the wedding on Facebook. She's telling everyone how perfect you and Kai are together. We booked flights to Chicago for Labor Day weekend. We want to meet him properly. I nearly dropped the phone. Kai, sitting across the kitchen island, raised an eyebrow. I mouthed, family coming. His face went still. After I hung up, he pulled me into his arms. We can handle this. But they think we're already serious. If I tell them the truth now, they'll be devastated. And if I keep lying, I trailed off. Kai rested his forehead against mine. Then we don't lie. Not anymore. We make it real before they get here. The next Saturday, he took me to the Art Institute. In front of a massive Rothko painting, he dropped to one knee, not with a ring but with a key. Move in with me, Adrian. Officially. No more hiding at work, no more separate lives. Let's give your family something true when they arrive. Tears stung my eyes. I pulled him up and kissed him right there in the gallery, tourists be damned. Yes. Moving day was chaos. Boxes, pizza, laughter. That night, tangled in sheets that smelled like both of us, Kai traced lazy patterns on my back. Whatever happens with your parents, I'm not going anywhere. I believed him. Labor Day arrived too fast. My parents stepped off the plane beaming. Dinner at Kai's, now our apartment, went perfectly. Dad and Kai bonded over football. Mom helped with dishes and whispered, "He looks at you the way your father still looks at me." I almost told them everything right then. But Kai squeezed my hand under the table and I held my tongue. One more day. The next afternoon we took them to Navy Pier. On the Ferris wheel, high above the city, my dad turned to Kai. Son, I know Adrian hasn't said it yet, but we're grateful. You've made him happier than we've seen in years. Welcome to the family. Kai's eyes met mine. In that moment, the last wall inside me crumbled. That evening, after my parents left for their hotel, I stood on our balcony overlooking the lake. Kai joined me, wrapping his arms around my waist from behind. Ready? He asked gently. I turned in his embrace. Yeah. Tomorrow I'm telling them the whole story, how we started fake and ended up here. And then I'm telling the rest of the family. No more hiding. He kissed me softly. I'm proud of you. The confession happened over breakfast at a downtown cafe. My parents listened in stunned silence as I laid everything bare. The invitation, the panic, the weekend of pretending, the slow, terrifying slide into real love. When I finished, my mother reached across the table and took my hand. Tears shone in her eyes. Adrian, we always knew something was different. We just didn't know how to ask. Thank you for trusting us now. Dad cleared his throat, voice rough. Caillou stuck by him even when it was supposed to be fake. That says more than any fancy speech. You're good for our boy. Relief crashed over me so hard my knees shook. Kai's arm around my shoulders kept me steady. But family is never simple. Back in Texas, Aunt Linda organized an emergency video call with half the relatives. "We heard the truth," she said, face tight on the screen. "Some of us are struggling with it. Church taught us different. But you're still family." Marcus, my cousin, spoke up from his honeymoon in Hawaii. "Love is love, guys. Adrian's my blood. Kai's his choice. End of story." Not everyone agreed. My grandmother stayed quiet, lips pressed thin. The silence hurt more than words. Kai held me that night while I cried. "They'll come around," he whispered. "Or they won't. Either way, you've got me. You've got us." Work became complicated too. Office gossip spread like wildfire once we stopped hiding. Some colleagues high-fived us. Others grew distant. One afternoon my boss called me in. "Human resources is fine with it, but clients might not be. Keep it professional." I left the meeting furious. Kai met me in the stairwell, pulled me into a hug. "We'll find better jobs if we have to. Together." That weekend we flew to Seattle so I could meet his moms. They welcomed me with open arms and embarrassing baby photos of Kai. For the first time I saw what unconditional love looked like. On the flight home, Kai laced our fingers. "Thank you for choosing real with me." I smiled. Best decision I never planned. But the real test was still coming. Christmas in Texas arrived wrapped in tension and tinsel. My entire extended family gathered at the ranch again, this time knowing the full story. Some hugged us. Others offered polite nods and avoided eye contact. Grandmother sat in her rocking chair, watching us with unreadable eyes. On Christmas Eve, after the kids had gone to bed, she asked to speak with me alone on the porch. Kai squeezed my hand before letting go. "I'll be right inside." Grandmother's voice trembled. "I've prayed about this every night since we heard. The Bible says one thing, but watching you two the way you look at each other, I see the same love your grandfather and I had for 60 years. Maybe God's bigger than the verses I memorized." She reached out and touched my cheek. "I'm sorry it took me so long. You're my grandson. Kai's my grandson now too." Tears slipped down my face as she pulled me into a hug that smelled like cinnamon and home. Later, under a sky full of Texas stars, Kai and I stood on the same porch where everything had begun. He turned to me, snowflakes catching in his dark hair. "Remember the first time we stood here pretending?" I laughed softly. "Hard to forget." He took both my hands. "Adrian, I don't want to pretend anything anymore. Not dates, not holidays, not a single day. Marry me. For real this time." From his pocket he pulled a simple silver band. My heart stopped, then raced. "Yes," I whispered. 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring on my finger and kissed me. Slow, deep, full of every promise we'd earned the hard way. Inside, my family raised glasses when we told them. Even the ones still struggling managed smiles. Love, it turned out, had a way of rewriting old scripts. Months later, standing at the altar in a small Chicago chapel with our closest people around us, I looked at Kai, my fake boyfriend, my best friend, my husband, and realized the craziest lie had led me to the truest thing I'd ever known. True or false? Sometimes the best love stories start with the biggest lies.